Max Brantley with the Arkansas Times on a slow Monday, June the 12th, here in Arkansas. Let's start with the travails of Donald Trump. Another federal court, the Ninth Circuit U.S. Court of Appeals, has again said that his travel ban for a group of Muslim countries was beyond his powers to impose. It was discrimination on the basis of nationality and religion. We'll hear more from him about that by Twitter soon, I'm sure. We learned that Scott Pruett, the head of the EPA, is appointed as the chief EPA defender of the environment, a guy who used to defend Coke industry against environmental actions, if that gives you any idea about where our environmental regulation is heading. Piece of good news, the attorneys general in Washington, D.C. and Maryland are going to file a lawsuit against Trump for taking illegal emoluments, that is, payments from foreign governments to stay in his hotel and curry favor with him. This is supposedly unconstitutional in the U.S., although Trump has Trump rules that sometimes he says make things different for him than for other presidents. Finally, a very weird event in Washington today. He had an open cabinet meeting in which they went around the table and members of the cabinet talked about what a fine fellow Donald Trump was and what a great job he was doing. A very uncomfortable moment, many reporters in the room thought, not Donald Trump. He likes that kind of adulation. Elsewhere on the Trump-related emotional scene, I think at least, if not directly related to Donald Trump, Greg Gianforte, recently elected to the U.S. House of Representatives from Montana, had an appearance in court in Montana and pleaded guilty to misdemeanor assault for assaulting a newspaper reporter for asking him the night before his election about a health care bill. Pretty offensive thing to do, wouldn't you say? He was sentenced to 40 hours of community service, tough punishment. There's some journalists out there in the world facing prison sentences for covering the travails of the Trump tribulation, beating up a reporter, worth a few hours of community punishment and an anger management course. Back closer to home, Melanie Martin, a career prosecutor in Larry Jegley's office in Pulaski County, is announced as a candidate for district judge in Little Rock next year. That seat is open because of Alice Lytle's retirement. That's the criminal division of district court in Little Rock. There may yet be other candidates. Today in federal court, a trial begins on the case by Chris Erlin, a man who says he was beaten brutally by then Police Lieutenant David Hudson, who was working private security at a restaurant in the Hillcrest neighborhood. Hudson said Erwin wasn't speedy enough in leaving a private party to which he wasn't invited. There's videotape of this incident. The trial may well include some testimony about Hudson's long history of complaints by people in the public about misconduct on his behalf and sometimes violent behavior. Late Friday afternoon, after we'd recorded this program, Governor Asa Hutchinson appointed Mary Robyn Castile as the permanent director of the Alcoholic Beverage Control Division. She had left and resigned about the same time the previous director left. He encouraged her to come back. It's an important hire because she wrote the regulations for the new medical marijuana law, which will be regulated by the ABC, so they think they now have somebody on hand that knows what they're talking about. A good thing. Also, Friday afternoon after we recorded, there was some coverage of a rally by religious leaders in support of Wendell Griffin, the circuit judge who some people want to remove from office because he participated in a demonstration against the death penalty. They said that it's his right as a U.S. citizen to exercise the First Amendment, and there's a religious freedom to be considered too for the pastor. He has an ability to express his religious preferences without being punished for it. Well, later that day, Trent Garner, a state senator from South Arkansas, says, no, they've got it all wrong. The Religious Freedom Protection Act isn't to protect things like this, that Wendell Griffin has misused the act if he says his beliefs are protected by that law in this particular case. Well, of course, that law was a sham. It was only meant to protect discrimination against gay people. Everybody understood that at the time. This is hypocrisy at work, no more, no less. Trent Garner needs a lesson on the part of the Bible about the Pharisees, I'd say. The resistance continues, I'm happy to say. Tens of thousands of people marched in Washington, D.C. and around the country for equal rights and against the policies of the Trump administration. There was a strong contingent from Arkansas there waving the Arkansas flag high, and that was a good thing. I had a great time Saturday night at Vino's, where the Vagical Mystery Tour had a comedy review with the Lady Parts Justice League. This was mainly a fundraiser, but in a lighthearted vein for abortion rights in America, and the support for that is certainly well needed. The crowd there hooted and hollered, and it was a good crowd, and responded very well to criticism of, among others, Tom Cotton and Jason Raper. Pretty easy targets in that crowd, as you can imagine. They're resisting, so am I. I'm Max Brantley. Be back tomorrow.